Excellent. Let me now find myself. There we are. Oops, wrong one. There we are. StreamYard is telling me that I am live, but my phone is not telling me I'm live. So this could prove a challenge. Let's see if it's just a matter of time. Because sometimes that's all. Aha, there we are. It was just a matter of time. There we are. So there is approximately a 45-second delay between what I'm doing and what's happening on screen, ladies. Just so that you're aware, it might take me a little while to answer everything. Thank you, Jan. Welcome, welcome. Hello, Emrene. Hello, Connie. Welcome. Let me just move some of this gubbins not quite out of the way because I'm actually going to need quite a lot of that. Let's just pick that one up off the floor. And I've gone live just a little bit early, so let's just wait and see who comes in today. Oops. Oh, there we are, showing you the price of this. This came from a cheap UK store. It is 6 inches by 12 inches. And let's just see if it's going to fit on camera. Right. Always helpful, so you'll get some extra views. There we are. Let's just move that. It might prove slightly, yeah, almost all on camera. Let me come back up. I'll move you in a bit. There we go. Good. Well, you might be able to see my tummy, but hey ho. At least you'll be able to see the whole piece, I think, by doing that. I move that down. There we are. So we're all on screen. That's always helpful. Good afternoon, Juliana. Hello, Sarah. Hello, Jenny. Welcome. Hello, Julie. Thank you. So I have, as I say, a canvas that is 6 inches by 12 inches. That's from a well-known UK brand. And I have some die-cut shapes. You could just as easily cut these ones by hand. The dies I have also cut an outside piece. So we're just going to make a textured background, but do it in a way that I think is just a little bit different. And we're going to use these to add our detail in. And I sort of need to know where I'm putting my focal imagery so I can get those into the best place. So in the Stamperia Timeless collection, there is a soft mould that contains lots of hot air balloons. Are they about the same size? There we are. We'll just fiddle with those a little bit. And this is not even the biggest of them. Good afternoon, Sandy. Welcome. Okay, so there's lots of different size ones. There we are. We'll just have a little play with those. And there is one a size bigger than that, but I like this composition. You can see that they go from very large, the one that's missing, through to eeny weeny teeny. That is less than an inch, maybe 2 centimeters tall, and the big one is about that big. It's huge. So that makes this really, really usable. So I'm going to create, because we all know I'm not the biggest, I don't have the biggest ability to create stuff by draw by hand, but I can use products effectively and use what I have, because that's always helpful, isn't it? And as I say, these are die cuts. Some of them are single, some of them are doubled up, and they're cut from 300 GSM cardstock, so quite substantial for reasons which will become clear. Anyway, so let us just do a little bit of shenaniganing. Let's just pop. No, I think we're going to pop that there. So we're going to have some clouds behind our pieces. I've got some extra bits. We don't necessarily, and I've got some that I've already chopped in half, because clearly chopping things in half will work, won't it? Because you don't always need to have everything used whole. Aha! And there be the other half of that. There we are. So that's going to go there. I think we might be doing, just because I think it might work better, that one that way and that one that way. So we've got some half pieces sitting on there, and then we've got some whole pieces, and I've got another one so that we're going to tuck in and around, and we don't have to use them all, and we can stack and build these so that we've got extra texture along the way. A little half one there. So I'm just going to build up my shapes so that I've got until I'm happy really with the pattern. Okay. Right. Let's just, I think we might just need an extra bit down here. So let's just pop that tucked under there, and let's add one of those tucked under there. Yeah. Okay. And we've got some other pieces. Now in my dies we've got hi Sheila, hi Isabel. We've got part ones, just because of the way they are. So I don't necessarily want them all of it in. So just give some of your pieces a cheeky haircut, because why not? I'm going to pop that up onto there, and don't be afraid to double up. We are literally just going to build some texture here with these pieces. And let's just add little bits that are going off to the side, because why not? It's just going to build up, I think, a nicer scene overall by doing these. So yeah, we're going to have a cloudy sky, because why not? There we are. Okay. And let me see. Oh, I think we might just have just another bit down there. There we are. Possibly. Do I want that bit there? I think I'm going to pop that bit there. There we are. I'm going to swap that around. So a big and a little. And I think we're going to call it a day with those. If that makes sense. Good evening, loving son. Welcome. So I've got a composition that I like that's going to help me build texture and add detail in a way that I think should hopefully be achievable for lots of you. Let me just move that a little bit towards me, that over there. Then hopefully, if I move that so you're not feeling quite so seasick. Yeah, it's always a headache, isn't it, when I choose a big project. I can't be doing with that. There we are. That will do. And let's hope I don't then knock it flying. Because why wouldn't I? So I am now going to use the Pentacolor Express glue that is going to work for me. That will be my fault, my bad. I've just knocked my camera unintentionally. There we are. There we are. Let's move that. And I'm just going to unplug it, unblock it, because that's what we're going to do. So last week we used no resin, but we did, we used fabric. Oh dear, oh dear. Right, let's just take that off there. Oh, and do I need all of that? Answer, no. But hey ho, that's life, isn't it? Right, eeny. So I'm just going to get a piece of cut and use. Yeah, it's going to make my life easier, and I'm going to make myself a glue pad. There we are. Let's just knock that into there. So I don't have an excessive amount on here, but I've got that, and then I can tap my piece that I want the glue all over and pop it into there where I want it. Okay. So let me just move that over there so you can see what I'm up to. So I'm just going to tap that, make sure I've got glue all over, pop it down, and we've got a bit of rinse and repeat, because that's just what's going to happen, isn't it? But the express glue will grab reasonably quickly. I could be using heavy body gel, but to be honest, I'm using paper, so heavy body gel is, I think, a little bit over the top for doing that. You could take your die cut pieces and just arch them, twist them round. Sticky fingers absolutely don't help with this, but hey ho, that there is a certain inevitability I'm going to end up with sticky fingers, and that's fine. So there we are. Let's just pop that into there, pop that onto there, give that a little tap. There we are. You make sure it sits where you want it to. It will eventually glue down, I promise. But there we are. So as I say, we're just going to use these die cut, single layered, double layered. You could go 3. I'm just wanting some texture in a way that I can't, that that instead of using modeling paste and things, all modeling paste does is add some layers of texture for you. So this is going to do exactly the same thing, and that will help, I think, build your piece. A little bit of dye glue on the other side really won't matter. Yeah, let's just stick that onto there. I might move that over just a little bit. There we are. Stick that down. Add some more glue on that one, because clouds overlap each other, and by building them and layering them like this, we're not going to have everything all identical. So that's the plan. There we go. Go on, take that off onto the edge. See, and the heavens have decided to open, because why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? So I hope the weather is good wherever you are. The UK had beautiful, beautiful beginning of May, and it's now pretty pants really. But on the other hand, our gardens absolutely needed the rain. So I can't necessarily complain, though complaining about the weather is a UK pastime, isn't it? Of course it is. Of course it is. We always complain about the weather. We're never happy. There we are. So I just thought this might be a different way for people to see stuff that was, you know, and use products that you might not normally think about. So I'm a great believer in using what you have. Makes sense to me to use what I have. There we are. I've got rid of the worst of that. I can pop that into there. It's definitely easier with these more fragile bits to pop it like so. Let's just pop that into there. There we are. That can go there. That can go onto there. So let's get rid of those pieces for now, and let me just wipe the sticky off my hands. I'm glad it's been nice for you. And I'm just going to give these a good push down. And then I'm going to give them a blast dry. Having tidied up. So those are all anchored. And I could carry on, but I've built myself up a beautiful scene. That can go in that water. I can clear up that mess. As I say, if you've not got cloud dyes in your stash, just chop up some clouds. Make it how you want. Because I think there's lots of different ways of doing this. There we are. So let's destuck the hands. Let's just sort that out and lid it. And then we're going to give this a proper blast dry. You're absolutely right. It always rains for kids' holidays or and UK half terms. And of course it's half term for kids this week. So let's just give this a little bit blast dry. It won't take that glue very long to dry. But I do need it to dry before we do the next stage. So I'm going to do something on here that I nearly always have pre-prepared, but I couldn't actually do that this time round. Because I've clearly now not got a uniform colour or texture. And I need to have these more uniform. Let's just get these all stuck down. It won't take that long for this to happen. The glue is quite well behaved. Let's just give it a blast from the back. It's just going to help dry that off nicely. And we're going to turn it back over. Good, excellent. And as I say, we're going to do something that you actually don't see me do very often on there, and that is get out the primer paste from Pentacolor, which is a white gesso, and this is the 100ml pot. I often will be using a 200ml pot. So if we're just now going to give this all a jolly good coat with white gesso, because I'm going to want to add stuff to these, and I want the surface to be an even texture. So currently the paper pieces I've added on would absorb paint differently to the canvas, and although every good quality canvas comes primed, it's sometimes just easier to add your own priming there to it. So let's just give this all a layer of primer. So I think today's live isn't going to be a silly amount of time. She says famous last words, that, isn't it? Of course it is. So there's lots of nooks and crannies. So when I'm going back and forth, it's because I can see areas that I have missed. There we are. I have already primed the resin pieces, but you could be using clay in your both das would work, Jovi would work, Hearty would work. Lots of different air dry clays will work. I just like the speed of the resin, particularly the rapid resin, because I can do lots of things with it, and I can also mold it if I need to. Won't be too big an issue here because I don't need to hold it. So there we are. We're getting there. We're getting there. Let's get rid of that. There we are. So I can see a few people have come in. So welcome, Isabel. Thank you for joining us this evening. It's always a pleasure to have people watching. I don't like being Billy No Maze. Having said that, I always have someone online with me. There we are. So I think this make. So for those of you in the UK, I remember as a child watching absolutely fascinated, a hot air balloon festival. Just amazed at the amount of time it took to lay out the balloons and then get them so that they were filled up enough for takeoff. And it just fascinated me, and then once they're up in the air, they just move absolutely effortlessly. Now, again, I've chosen colours that for me are going to reflect that. So bright, more primary colours than the colours that go in the Timeless collection. There we are. So I don't know if that's me, but there we are. Let's just move that back into shot. Let's move those out of the way. And I need to give that a little bit of a blast, or at least to start the drying process off, and then I can move it out of the way. So by using the die cut paper pieces, you could do this, with lots of different things. You could do it as a night sky with stars and moons. The sky's the limit if you use your dyes as a way of creating your texture. You could, if you're really good at painting, just paint your clouds in, but it will give you a slightly different effect to the one that I'm wanting tonight. But this is just allowing me to have textural interest and the suspicion that we've got a sky. And for me, it was just easy. I know I made a card, Sarah. I know. And you might just see me making a few more in the next few months. This live had been prepped before Sylvie from Pentacolor and I had a discussion about things. But there's going to be a few more paper-based and maybe some art journaling pages, but not for this week and not for next week either. But going forward, we've decided we might do. That's what I might do, just to change it up a little bit. And to be quite honest, I've now got so much clutter in my room. I don't have space to store anything. And if I do some art journaling pieces, we can still learn about all the products quite happily. But I can have these that I can put into a book and flick through rather than needing to find space on it so it's still wet at the side. Anyway, that will work for that for now. And I'm just going to pop it off to the side and hope I don't put my hand in it too much, because there we are. Right, now then, on the floor next to me are lots of different mediums. So let's go with bright red. So that is lipstick red. This is dark blue. We've got apple green. I've got punch. I've got yellow. I think that might work to start with. I do have, oh, and I've got 2 browns for the baskets. There we are. So let's just pop. Oh, she's sending everything flying, helter skelting around. Hello, Stephanie. So let's just pop these out and about. There we are. Because, as I say, English countryside, the colours are bright and vibrant, aren't they? So let's just pop some of that red lipstick on there. I'm on my craft mat. Let's pick some sun yellow. That is what that one is. Let's just grab. Yes. I'm sorry about the noise. I think the noise is the rain that's coming down. Oh, she says, there we are. So I can make an orange from those 2. Let's just pop out a little bit of the blue. There we are. We won't need masses and masses. Here we are. Let's go. Apple green. Oops, she says. And let's go punch, which is slightly softer, but I think will still work quite nicely. Is it punch? Yes, it is punch. There we are. Right. Eeny meeny. Let's just grab. So we're just going to. It's definitely rain falling on the roof, but I'm glad that's not what you're hearing, because rain falling and full bladders is not a good combination as we get older, as we all know. There we are. There we are. There we are. Right. Excellent. So that's that. So these, as I say, have been cast from rapid resin in white, and I have primed them with my gesso. So let's just pick some smaller brushes. So let us, there we are, let's take that. So I'm just going to use the shapes of the that are already cast in the resin pieces. There we are. There we are. So we're going to have that there. And let's just add, I'm going to add some red there. There we are. Good. So these might be beyond my ability to really paint these with fine detail, but there we are. Let's go for it. There we are. We can tidy that up. And we're definitely just going to paint this one. It's way too small. Mind you, I could get a smaller brush out, but hey ho, we might pop some extra colour into it later on. Okay. So I've got red on my brush, so let's just custom make an orange. We'll have a little bit more of that, because why not? Why not? Why not? There we are. So let us just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, that's inconsiderate, isn't it? So let's just... So I'm just going to paint this and go for it, because I think it's going to be easier to do so. There we are. We'll have that yellow next to the orange. And if they merge a bit, I'm not going to worry too greatly. There we are. As I say, I think that we'll get some colour variation in the process. There we are. There we are. That will work quite nicely. Let's just now pick up some of that yellow. I don't wish to be here at tea time tonight, tomorrow evening, painting all of these. You can be if you wish to be, but sometimes life is too short. And also, lives are definitely time restricted. There we are. So we've got an orange and yellow striped blue there. I'm going to let that down to dry. Let's just have this balloon as orange. There we are. Okay. Let's take some of that green. This one might be a little bit more manageable. Because the reality of life is high up in the sky. You're really not going to notice, are you? The lining work. It's all there. We'll add some wax to that. So let's just take some of that blue. And let's just come across here with a nice bluey green. By adding that green into there, we're going to get some shade colouring in. There we are. So you could paint each piece of these differently, but they're even numbered, and that might just do my head in a little bit because we know that they're not. There we are. Let's just clean that brush a little bit. Hi, Steph Blanche. Welcome, my darling. There we are. So let's just add some bright. There's a nice line across here. So that's going to add another one of those. There we are. Oops, my computer has just flickered. I hope that's not a bad sign. There we are. So that's now a limey green. Let me just make that better. Okay. Let's go with proper lime green at the top. To echo the bottom. There we are. And yeah, I'm sure we're meant to have a bit more of maybe the the ropes and a bit of sky in between, but we'll add that later in. There we are. So that works from there. Let's just take some of that blue and add some blue into there. There we are, we're getting there. So I don't even have, for me, a huge number of moulds tonight. I know. 2 weeks running, but we do have moulds. There we are. And let's go with that blue. I'm going to have to get a clean brush out in a minute, ladies. I really am. There we are. Let's take some of that punch and add that into here. We might end up with some purpley colour, but that's okay because that's not quite white. But that's okay. There we are. Right. Okay. Let's just get some brown. Don't do that, Stephanie. You'll go giddy. And breathe. Breathing is good. Oh, there we are. I do have a pale blue, which we might need in a minute. She says. There we are. See. There we are. Right, let's just wipe some of that off. Let's just add the basket. Because the reality, of course, is that they're woven, aren't they? Add some little. We will add some blue into that bit in between. There we are. There we are. We'll sort that out later on. The smaller they are, the less detail that you're going to have. It's all going to be more about suspicion rather than There we are. Just add the support pieces for the basket. Life is too short. There we are. Right, these ones are, I think, big enough to add a little bit of blue in later on. So let's just add this, and then we can add our baskets. Because there are supports, aren't there, on the baskets to hold them up. There we are. There we are. Right. Let's come back over that bit. We've got a blob in there, which is always interesting. Lots of lines in that, so we're not going to worry. we're going to take that back up to there. And then we're going to give this a little bit of a dry. Tidy up the mucky bit. There we are. Okay. I did get out the little one. Oh dear. Yeah, I think we all have things that work. Right. Do I stick my tongue out? I don't know, ladies. I don't know. Do I? I don't think I do. And I'm consciously trying not to. Of course. Because you would be, wouldn't you? Right. Ugh. And that bit definitely now needs a dry. So let's just give this lot a good blast. There we are. And then we can do some tidying up with the magic that is antiquing gel. And then I've got some copper wax today. You don't very often see me working with copper wax, but there we are. That's what we're going to do. Compulsory maybe. Yeah. So we've got our brightly coloured blues that just all need to dry. And there's no short circuiting this process, I'm afraid. So, what has everyone else got planned in this world? I know Blanche is live for Pentart on Thursday at 6 o'clock UK time. So Blanche's live will be in English and Spanish. So for those of you in the UK who find it very difficult to follow in anything other than English, her live will be fully accessible for you. And I'm sure she'll have something pretty planned, as she always does. I haven't even got what the title is, so I can't even help there. Okay. Am I going to behave tonight? Yeah, I'm going to behave tonight, she says. Having picked up a pot of varnish that is now glued shut. So that might make me change my mind. What's the title, Blanche, for your make on Thursday? Because we've got rinse and repeat on the colour processes going on, I'm afraid. Because let's just not take a good new brush. Let's just take a brush that's a bit more cream crackered. Let's just add this. So this is just matte varnish, and it's because there's so many details in these. I'm going to have to rub, I think, quite hard to get the antiquing gel out of where I want it out of. And so I think that the varnish is just going to make that easier for me. There we are. These are reasonably dry, I think. not fully dry, but let's just get rid of the big globs on there because it'll take forever to dry if we do that. If we don't, obviously let your pieces dry fully before you try varnishing them, because you'll just move colour around if you're not careful. There we are. There we are. Oh. Right, excellent. Let's wipe that little lot. A decoration for summer season. Well, that's entirely cryptic. I am none the wiser. So, ladies, if you want to know what Blanche is doing, there is one option. And that will be to watch her live on Thursday. As I say, it will be in English, so that is always cool. There we are. Okay, no harm was done in the falling of that pokey tool. Thankfully, it did not land in my foot, which is a blessed major plus, isn't it? There we are. Hey, we'll have a surface that's reasonably clean. And now we definitely need, thank you, Stephanie. You know, it's so important that creatives are supported. We're only allowed to do this by virtue of the fact that people watch. Ultimately, hopefully, people buy Pentacolor products, but you know, if no one isn't watching, then we won't be supported by Pentacolor. Pentacolor are pretty much the only company that provides me with products, for which I'm very, very grateful. They are incredibly generous with their paints and their mediums. Tell you what, we're going to pop those off to the side. They're not, because we're going to need to add some colour onto here. Okay, that's reasonable. I'm just going to turn this off to the side, just to make sure it is properly dry. Hi Liz, welcome. There we are. Excellent. So let's just pop that there and there. So there is that. And now then, what have I got? I've got a spray bottle with water. Excuse the colour of it. And I have some antique gel in this beautiful dark blue colour. I have a pearly white spray to give a bit of shimmer and an olivey green to tone that down a little bit. So don't be bothered by the fact that I've picked a really dark colour, because that doesn't matter. I've got another pot here of clean dry, and I am going to pop some water, clean water, onto there. There is method in my madness, ladies, because the lasers are really, really pigment dense. And I almost want this to be a watercolored effect. Thank you, Stephanie. It's really, I think, you know, it's so appreciated. There we are. So that really bright, dark blue with water can now be thinned right down. And what starts out as looking really vibrant actually softens and mutes really nicely. And if I want to add more, I can. But I want some white space in amongst here, or some colour variation. And I couldn't easily do this if I didn't have the gesso on these pieces. Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to take some of this turquoise. Yeah, but if I tip this up, you can see how dark that colour is, but it's translucent, which means water would just dilute the pigment. And you can see how pale I've now got it. This is just a medium mist. It says it's olivey green. I'm just wanting to add some colour variation into here. Could have picked grey, but I don't want a sort of wintry sky, if that makes any sense to anyone. I want something that looks and those colours will blend. So I've just chosen colours that I liked, that I know will work together. You can take it down the side if you want to. Yeah. I might add more to the sides off live, but that's okay. Okay. So we've now got some extra colour into here. It's soft, it's subtle. There we are. But I'm going to need to get that dry. Okay. I might add. It'll soften down even further when it's as it dries, ladies. So just be aware of that. And remember, you can always knock stuff back. You can always add white to a surface. But this really isn't uber complicated. And that's too dark and too lined on that edge for me. Okay. So now we've got masses of water on here. Masses of water. Hello, Jenny. Welcome. Okay. So, and before I can do much else, I am going to have to. Let's just clean that. Give this all a bit more of a blast dry. So for this type of thing, I would say that what you need to do is you build up your layers bit by bit by bit. Okay, if it looks too pale, once you've added one layer, it's easy enough to add another. So that can sit now to the side while we finish off the embellishments. So hopefully you'll see that even though I've started out with something really dark, that that steel blue is just beautiful. Actually, you can chase it down just by, and don't be afraid. Water is your friend. You can always dry something off and then add more colour. And if you've really gone too dark, then actually a good bit of dry brushing will also help build in some extra texture and colours for you. I just need these pieces to be properly dry before I can grab some antiquing gel to these. And I can add shadow once my resin pieces are in place. It's only done when you're happy with the final piece. I can't dry brush until it's dry though. Okay, let's just pop that over there and pick up the next two pieces that we want. So let's grab a scrubbly brush that's not going to matter. So this is just the white antiquing gel. So we're just going to give that a good coat with that. It's a leveler of playing fields are the antiquing gels. It's interesting, when they first arrived, it was my first year on Pentart's design team, and I looked at the fact there's sort of 6 or 7 colours that we got and went, what am I going to do with them? And then took a big breath in and went, okay, so you're going to put your big girl's pants on, and then you're going to get on with it and just make them work. There we are. And it never fails to just how much a difference just adding those low lights in does. I might not add highlights, I might not use the wax. It does make a big difference to the pieces. There we are. It'll help fill in the nooks and the crannies, and I will add some extra light and details into our piece. So you notice that I'm mixing up the products from Pentart that have been around for years with products that are relatively new to market. There we are. And this it doesn't require lots of skill. I'm not going to say that I don't have some skills, because clearly I do have some, but it just makes life easy for you. There we are. I didn't brush that quite gently enough. So I've taken it nearly all off, but that's fine. We can icky, sticky, mucky fingers. There we are. Be a little bit more gentle. This one will show up well enough. Wow. For a life that I thought wasn't going to take me very long, maybe I was wrong. Maybe it will take me a while. I'm never only on air for an hour, am I? Let's face it. It always goes over. There we are. Excellent. And I'm not convinced I do want to add all. I might just add a little bit of copper wax to the baskets. Definitely don't want them on the balloons. Just add a little bit onto the basket. There we are. Good. Right. There's my heavy body gel. Right, let me just stand up even. Okay. So I can still see I've got some wet areas here. I'm going to keep this up just a little bit, and then we're going to pop these pieces into place, and then we're going to add, maybe add a bit more of that dark blue, maybe add just around some of the hot air balloons. Yeah. Oh, right, excellent. Heavy body glue, because I've got a bouncy canvas and rigid hot air balloons. So if I don't have a heavy body gel on here, then they'll ping off over time, whereas a heavy body gel will keep it safe for me. So let's just pop a layer of that onto there. Let's just pop that one into place. Right, eeny meeny. Now I'm just going to give that a little bit of a blast to give that heavy body gel just a bit of a chance to actually grab. Some of this is still wet, and it's going to be a little bit problematic to add extra bits onto it because it is wet still. I don't want that big blob of heavy body gel there or there. Okay. Just take off that gel. I can see it. If I can see it now, I'll certainly see it later on. Okay. Now then, let's just come back to our sky. Tiny bit of that out. I don't think we're going to need very much of it. That'll be about 25 times as much as we need, but that's okay. So let's just repeat this process. And then we can grab just want to find the round brush that I had in my pot. Okay. Oh, that one will do over there, because why not? Let's just add I am going to spritz this a little bit more. Just want to add just a little bit more colour into some areas of here. I do want it to fade out. I don't want it to have a harsh line, and the water is going to allow me to do that. You can see what you mean by you can then continue to layer as you want to. Right, dry. So as I say, build your layers, build your colours, come back and forth. It might well take, if I wasn't on the live, it may well take me, 5 or 6 goes at this rather than trying to do it all in one go. Because if I just left it to dry, and if I left it to dry on its own, then I would get a very, a different effect to this, because the heat tool is moving my colours around. I still think it's going to look fairly effective. And tipping and tilting is adding. And now if we're going to stand any chance at dry brushing over those clouds, I absolutely have to get this dry. So bear with me, ladies. but my recommendation if you try something like this would be to just let it dry on its own quietly, rather than trying to rush the process. Oh dear. Sorry, all the water won't have helped that, Sarah. I'm really sorry. So I can see I've still got a whole mountain of water that's underneath some of these pieces. Which will definitely interfere with the dry brushing. But all I'm doing is adding interest to the background with all of this, the tipping and the tilting. Okay, let's just see how much of it we can get dry. There's definitely some areas that are better than others. Definitely now looks a bit more like a summer sky, doesn't it? It's not good for you to do that, Sarah. Definitely not good for you to do it. Ladies of an age, we are not meant to. We're much more prone to water infections than the men. And so we really shouldn't be, and that's simply because there's not very far between the outside and our inside and our bladder compared to the men. We've got a little bit extra down there. So definitely we're not meant to hold our wee when we don't need to. So there's masses of water underneath that piece. Get rid of some of that. Right, we will endeavour not to disturb that too greatly, I think is the answer, because it will take a good while. Okay. So we now have a piece that's almost dry. We've got up and away, and that's the vision I had. Bright hot air balloons in a summer sky with some soft clouds. I'm just going to whiten up some of that texture that I put on at the beginning. So I have a hog hair brush here and white gesso, and this might be a little bit more problematic because things are still wet. Turn your piece around. Don't be afraid to move stuff around. Knock most of that off. You're absolutely not painting. Get rid of most of that. So that's definitely still wet because I've just picked up. Thank you. There we go. And I hope, Stephanie, I've stopped you worrying about. That just needs a little bit of a blast there because it's still wet there, and I know I've just picked up and spread blue when I don't want to. That's because it's wet underneath the hot air balloon. Let's see if that will work. That definitely needs to be a bit drier. It's another one where I think I might have a little bit of headache. That definitely needs to dry there. There's definitely lots of blue underneath there that is far from dry at the moment. And again, this is another step that where you could find yourself coming back and forth, you know, 10, 20, lots and lots and lots of different times. Definitely will work better once it's properly dry though. And it's easier because currently the blue is still quite damp, even though I surface dried it. It's not dry. That was definitely a whole collection of blue in that I didn't want. There we are. So, ladies, we have Up, Up and Away. A summer sky in the English countryside with traditional multicoloured bright hot air balloons. No advertising hoardings on them. And a memory from my childhood. So I hope, let me just move that down a little bit, that you've enjoyed this. Remember, don't be afraid of the dark colours. They really can mute down. Remember, that is the predominant blue, but I don't think you'd necessarily guess that from where it is now. If you've got dyes, look at them differently. Use them to build your texture, and then add the different layers as you see, as you want to. Thank you, Sarah. It's just a little bit different. I have to say I struggle because 4 lives a month, well, 1 live a week, coming up with something that is new, that's different, that has some education and isn't just a pretty make that I've enjoyed making is a real challenge. But one that I'd absolutely try to stand up to each week. If there are products from Pentart that you are struggling with or would like demonstrated, and I have them in my stash, then please feel free to send me a personal message via my own page, which is Gill Humphrey, and I will then see if I can come up with a project that will show you how to use those products. There are always lives on the YouTube channel for all of the different projects, but I appreciate sometimes it's nice to physically see something when doing something live rather than in a fixed video. So I undoubtedly will come back and add some more dry brushing when this is fully dry. In the meantime, ladies, please stay safe and look after yourself. I will be back for Pentart next Tuesday, and probably live on my own page on Sunday. I'm getting new glasses on Friday, so Friday is going to be a bit busy for me. So for now, please take care of yourselves, enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you so much for your company. Bye.